Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your patience. Took us a few minutes to get everything together here. Thanks for joining us for this press conference about by the Chicago Teachers Union about the recent plans and proposals we're getting from Chicago Public Schools for this fall. To kick us off, I'm going to introduce the Vice President of the Chicago Teachers Union, Stacey DavisGates.
Good morning. Thank you for being here this early. We are here, we had originally planned to host this press conference to talk about a tracker that we were launching to maintain a consistent update on the cases of COVID that our members report to us on a very regular basis since October 1. What we know now is that there are nearly 30 schools that have either been closed or have experienced staff members with COVID. Now, this is happening with the skeleton staff of people in our school communities. There are no kids, no students in our school communities. And so this is concerning. We have not reached agreement with the Chicago Public Schools or the mayor on how we receive this information from them. We believe that transparency matters and that we need to have that information. In fact, their practice as of late is very different from the one that they practiced in the spring when we received regular updates. That's concerning to us. That is concerning to the workers that are in the school building. And so we were launching that tracker today. But in between launching the tracker and getting to this press conference this morning, we were told through media that the Chicago Public Schools mayor has decided to bring back special education students in cluster programs and early childhood learners. We're concerned about that. That will put tens of thousands of students back into school communities. That an arbitrator 2 weeks ago, in fact, said that our school communities need safety measures that are not yet in place, thus deeming them unsafe. What we need in this moment is more engagement, more collaboration, more transparency, more clarity with respect to how we can reopen safely. What we know today that was different in March is that COVID is aerosol, meaning it's airborne, and that we will need upgrades to ventilation systems. We will need upgrades to filtration in our school communities. This is about safety. We also know that our mayor in Chicago Public Schools has yet to invest the dollars necessary to reopen safely. A conservative estimate, a very conservative estimate, puts us at nearly $1 billion to reopen safely. What does that mean? We have a long way to go and a short time to get there. We cannot experiment or take lightly the responsibility that we will need to see from our mayor and Chicago Public Schools as reopening plans are hatched. In fact, you cannot put together a plan in the dark of the night with only a few people that excludes our parents, that excludes our families, that excludes our educators, our practitioners, and excludes our union. This is a pandemic. No one requested this upheaval. We are all managing the best that we can. We have very unsustainable remote learning schedules. We have students that have started petitions. We have parents who are very frustrated. And we have educators working almost around the clock to offer the best type of engagement that they can in a new medium that they haven't perfected. We need more grace. We need more empathy. We need more transparency. We need more engagement. The way in which reopening for schools is being handled stands in stark contrast to the type of deep engagement and transparency that members of the restaurant community and the bar community had with the mayor and her team. Our children are very important to us. Our students are our priorities. Their families and our families are important. We need for this to work, but right now, with what we understand, this is the worst way to do it. We have not heard of testing. We have not heard of contact tracing. All hallmarks of plans that provide us with the safest way of returning to our school communities. We are very concerned about putting our students who are in cluster programs back into the school communities. Many of them have comorbidities. Many of them rely on public transportation, their families. This isn't a plan. This is an idea. And it is a dangerous idea if it is implemented as is now. Yesterday, Illinois recorded the highest number of COVID cases since the pandemic has started. So I'll ask our mayor, I'll ask the administrators at the Chicago Public Schools, what has changed today to make it safer than when schools were closed in March? Now I'll go to one of our rank and file members, Linda Perales. Linda?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Perales. I'm a special education teacher at Corkery Elementary School in Little Village. And this year I teach the K-2 cluster program. And the cluster program has students with disabilities such as autism and Down syndrome. Many of my students require hand-over-hand assistance. Many of them require assistance with toileting, assistance with feeding. The needs of my students are so high that we have 4 special education assistants in our classroom. That means that in our classroom, there are 5 adults and 11 students. As you can imagine, helping students with such high needs makes it impossible to social distance, and that is putting all of us at risk. So this plan that CPS has sent out actually at an email to CPS staff at 6:15 this morning, and it is the first time we're hearing about it. It says that parents want this. And I have been speaking to the parents of my students, and they do not want their students to return to the school building. And the few that are saying that maybe they do want it are doing it because they have been forced to choose out of necessity between going to work and staying home to help their child with remote learning. And that's because Lori Lightfoot hasn't provided the citizens, the Black and brown citizens of our city, real housing relief, real financial relief, and real housing security so that they can stay home and help their students with remote learning. This email also states that they're going to provide a safe and clean learning environment with 400 new custodians. That means maybe your school will get 1 more custodian. They're saying that they bought 86,000 disinfectant wipes. That means about each teacher will get about 3 containers of disinfectant wipes. They are saying that there will be temperature checks in the schools. Who will provide these temperature checks? Because we don't have enough nurses. They're saying that they're gonna do an audit of our ventilation systems by November. And November will be too late if students go back into the buildings because, COVID transmits very quickly. So this is just infuriating. And they're saying that the city's positivity rate is at 5%. So that's acceptable. But actually here in Little Village, where I live and work, the positivity rate is 15%. And that's the case for many Black and brown communities in our city because they have been ignored by Lori Lightfoot. So Lori, stop playing with the lives of my students, stop playing with my life, with the lives of our communities, and we need remote learning until it is safe. And I'm gonna quickly translate my, my comments to Spanish. Mi nombre es Linda Perales, soy maestra de educación especial en la escuela Corkery en La Villita. Y soy maestra del programa Cluster. En el programa de Cluster, los estudiantes tienen discapacidades como autismo y síndrome de Down. Muchos de nuestros estudiantes requieren asistencia de mano sobre mano, necesitan ayuda en el baño. Las necesidades de mis estudiantes son tan especiales que tenemos 4 asistentes de educación especial. Y eso, y más yo en el salón, es 5 adultos y 11 estudiantes. Eso quiere decir que no podemos practicar distanciamiento social y eso nos pone a todos en riesgo. Y CPS acaba de mandar un correo electrónico a las maestras esta mañana a las 6:15 de la mañana y dicen que los padres quieren esto. Pero la verdad es que yo he estado hablando con los padres de mis estudiantes y ellos no quieren esto. Saben que es más seguro estar de aprendizaje remoto. Y vamos a hablar honestamente, los padres que dicen que sí lo quieren son los que han sido forzados a escoger entre ir a trabajar o ayudar a sus niños con aprendizaje remoto, porque la alcaldesa Lori Lightfoot no ha proveído real ayuda financiera y seguridad de vivienda para nuestros miembros de la comunidad que lo necesitan más. Y dicen que las escuelas van a estar limpias y seguras, pero dicen que van a contratar 400 personas más para limpiar. Eso quiere decir que quizás las escuelas van a tener una persona más, quizás una persona más para limpiar la escuela, que va a haber, que compraron 80,000 desinfectantes, las toallitas de desinfectantes. Eso quiere decir que cada maestra va a recibir quizás 3 de esos. Dicen que van a checar las temperaturas. ¿Quién las va a checar? Porque no tenemos suficiente enfermeras. Y dicen que van a checar los sistemas de ventilación. Y dicen que lo van a hacer en noviembre. Eso va a ser muy tarde porque sabemos que el COVID se transmite muy rápidamente. Así que Lori Lightfoot tiene que parar de jugar con la vida de nuestros estudiantes, con la vida mía, de las maestras, de nuestras comunidades, y tenemos que tener aprendizaje remoto hasta que sea seguro entrar a los edificios. Gracias.
Thank you, Leela. So our next speaker will be Thad Goodchild. He's the Deputy Counsel for the Chicago Teachers Union, and he'll be providing some of the legal updates that are relevant to these questions.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning. My name is Thad Goodchild. I'm Deputy General Counsel for CTU. CPS's plan to resume in-person instruction for pre-K and special education cluster programs next month is ill-timed, reckless, and illegal. Yesterday, the state of Illinois reported the highest one-day COVID-19 case total since the pandemic began 6 months ago. We have been urging CPS for months to reach an agreement with us on the conditions under which it will be safe to resume in-person learning and on ways to provide the best remote learning experience possible for Chicago's families in the meantime. CPS has refused on both counts. Not only has CPS refused to come to an agreement with the CTU on the public health criteria that would indicate it is safe to resume in-person learning, CPS evidently cannot even agree with itself on that question. At the July 29th CPS board meeting, the school district presented what it called a reopening framework. CPS, the mayor, and the Chicago Department of Public Health stated in that document that the school district would operate under remote learning if the 7-day rolling daily average of new COVID-19 cases was greater than 400 per day, or if there were greater than 200 new cases a day at the same time there was a rapid increase in new cases or inadequate hospital capacity. As of this morning, the 7-day rolling average of new COVID-19 cases in the city of Chicago was 475, and the number of positive cases is up 43% over last week. There are 27 neighborhoods in Chicago that have positivity rates of 10% or higher. There are 10 neighborhoods with positivity rates of 15% or higher, and there are 5 neighborhoods with positivity rates of 20% or higher. By the standards that the mayor, CPS, and CDPH set for themselves, it is not safe to resume in-person learning. If that were not enough, CPS is callously flouting the law in the way that it has handled the operation of the school district during the pandemic, and the way it is handling the question of how the rest of the school year will proceed. CPS records show that between March and August, 258 CPS employees and vendors tested positive for COVID-19, and 8 of those individuals died. And since the beginning of this school year, CPS has illegally refused to provide the CTU or the public with information about the number of individuals in CPS who have tested positive. So at the same time, it is trying to force educators and students back into school buildings that an arbitrator found were unsafe. And I'll speak more on that in a moment. CPS is hiding from the public the data that would shed light on the true nature of the risk of returning to school buildings. How can educators and parents possibly trust that CPS will keep them safe if it won't even be honest and transparent about the risks to safety that we are all facing together? While CPS has concealed the number of COVID cases so far this school year, our members have reported to us nearly 30 schools in the past 2 weeks with COVID cases. Tragically, 2 weeks ago yesterday, Olga Quiroga, a teacher at Funston Elementary School, who is believed to have contracted COVID while working at her school building in September, died of the disease. And 2 weeks ago today, an independent labor arbitrator that CPS itself selected ruled that CPS school buildings are an unsafe working environment during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that CPS had violated its labor contract with CTU by forcing school clerks and technology coordinators to report to school buildings in person when their work can feasibly be performed remotely. In the 2 weeks since, CPS has violated the arbitrator's order and has illegally threatened those employees with loss of pay or discipline for exercising their rights under the arbitrator's order to protect their health and their lives by working remotely. There's now scientific consensus that the spread of COVID-19 is predominantly airborne and that poorly ventilated indoor spaces significantly increase the risk of infection. CPS records produced in arbitration show that 60% of CPS schools have no central HVAC system. 50% have non-functional critical components of the air circulation systems, and only 9% have air filtration systems that meet public health recommendations for COVID-19 safety, which is a MERV 13 filter or portable HEPA filters. It does not have to be like this. CPS does not have to be perpetually at odds with the educators who serve the families of Chicago every day. Other big city school districts across the country, most notably Los Angeles and Boston, have reached agreements with their teachers' unions on how to operate school remotely during the pandemic and how and under what circumstances to safely resume in-person instruction. The Los Angeles Unified School District is providing COVID-19 testing to all staff, students, and their families. Despite CTU's inquiries for months, CPS has not made a single proposal on a testing and contact tracing plan, yet they are planning to return students and educators to school buildings in a few short weeks. Educators want nothing more than a return to normalcy and to be in their classrooms with their students. But given the current surge in COVID cases in Chicago and across the state, and frankly across the country, the next several weeks should be spent with CTU and CPS sitting down in honest, good faith collaboration to determine how to improve remote learning for the second quarter. Our members want desperately to share their insights on how the best possible educational experience can be delivered to students during the greatest public health crisis in 100 years. But CPS appears hell-bent on ignoring educators, denying science and the law, and putting people in danger. And if the mayor and her handpicked Board of Education persist in doing so, the CTU will have no choice but to seek all available recourse to stop them. This is quite literally a matter of life and death.
Thank you, Thad. Our next speaker will be Monica Espinoza from the Logan Square Neighborhood Association, and she's also the parent of a pre-K student at CPS. Monica.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Espinoza, and I'm an organizer with Logan Square Neighborhood Association and the mother of students in pre-K, second grade, high school, and college. This morning, I wasn't sure if I could make it because yesterday I was mourning the loss of a parent from one of the schools that I work with. She was a mother with kids the same age as mine, and also my next door neighbor. I am running out of words. This was one of many losses we had in the last few months. We are grieving the losses of parents, grandparents, a teacher. We have not been able to catch a break, and the zip code 60639. The positivity rate is 21.8%. Last week it was 14%. Winter hasn't even started yet. I haven't seen any reopened schools plan that says go for it when your positivity rate is 22%. In case CPS would like to survey a pre-K parent, here you go. I plan to keep my kids remote until Chicago gets COVID under control and fairly funds our school. Our schools, our kids are worth it, our lives are worth it. Mi nombre es Mónica Espinoza y yo soy una organizadora con la organización del vecindario de Logan Square y también soy la madre de estudiantes de prekinder, segundo grado, escuela secundaria y colegio. Y yo no estaba segura que iba a poder estar aquí esta mañana porque estoy sufriendo la pérdida. Estamos como comunidad sufriendo la pérdida de una de las madres en una de las escuelas que yo trabajo y también mi vecina de al lado. Muy joven, ella murió y es la mamá de niños de la edad de mis hijos, Dalila y Mateo, que están en prekinder y segundo grado. Y yo no tengo palabras para describir el dolor por el que estamos pasando, porque esta no es una pérdida nueva. Hemos experimentado tantas pérdidas en los últimos meses. Hemos perdido padres, hemos perdido abuelos y hemos perdido una maestra también, que son los casos más recientes. Nos sentimos que no hemos podido tener un descanso en el código 6639 porque la tasa de casos positivos es de 21.8% y la semana pasada apenas era el 14%. No ha comenzado todavía el invierno y no hemos visto escuelas que puedan decir que podemos abrir de una manera que sea segura cuando la tasa es del 22%. Y si CPS le interesa saber la opinión de una madre, yo estoy aquí para decirles que yo planeo tener a mis hijos en casa, mantenerlos en casa, aprendiendo de una manera remota, hasta que las escuelas públicas de Chicago puedan tener COVID bajo control y nos den los fondos necesarios para nuestras escuelas. Porque nuestros hijos valen la pena y nuestras vidas valen la pena. And if there's anybody that cares about it, there is a lot of people out there that I know they care about it. We're ready to do something about this. We're not going down without a fight. No estamos dispuestos a darnos por vencidos sin pelear. Thank you very much. Gracias.
Thank you, Monica. And I think I can speak for all of us to say that our thoughts and prayers are with you in this difficult moment. And I do want to say to the media that's here, we have a couple more speakers and then we'll be opening up for questions. If you have questions that you want to put into the Q&A, you can do so starting now, of course. So our next speaker will be Jasmine Cerda, who's from the Brighton Park Neighborhood Council. She's also the parent of a CPS student. Jasmine.
Hi, thank you for having me here today. My name is Jasmine Cerda, and I'm currently an organizer with Brighton Park Neighborhood Council, and I'm also a mother to an amazing little girl who is in kindergarten. I'm here today feeling anxiety, disappointment, and anger towards CPS and their lack of understanding and compassion towards their students, teachers, and parents. Right now in Brighton Park, we have a 17.3 of infectious rate due to COVID-19. Many of our families in the community have been exposed to COVID because they are essential workers. Therefore, the risk is extremely high. Opening the schools increases that risk. It has been said that small children don't get extremely sick from COVID, but they do transmit the virus. CPS, have you thought about who takes care of those children? Many grandparents, aunts, uncles, elders, people who may have a chronic illness, they take care of them while their parents go to work, meaning that they will be exposed if the CPS student that they are taking care of becomes ill due to the opening of the schools. The idea of reopening the schools should be out the window unless there is a vaccine. Right now, CPS should focus on giving more support to their teachers and principals. They should give enough resources to the parents and students during this pandemic. Those parents that are struggling with children care at home during e-learning should and deserve to get more support from CPS. CPS should also focus on making remote learning more reasonable, accessible, and fair for the students, parents, and teachers. My 5-year-old daughter understands the danger of the virus, and although she handles the mask very well and knows the importance of social distancing, I refuse to send her to school because as her mom, I can't imagine seeing her ill from a virus that can take her away from me. Remote learning has been a little harsh. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that it's been a great experience, but we've learned from it. The support, patience, and dedication that she receives from her teacher is incredible. But sadly, the teacher does not receive the same support from CPS. As a parent, I have done my best to accommodate my daughter's needs for this learning experience to be a successful one. And I will continue this if it's keeping her safe. CPS should not be making parents choose between the safety and health of their children versus their education. Parents, although remote learning is not easy for many, teachers, although the days are exhausting, and students, although you miss your friends from school, please remember that our children are safe at home, our families are safer at home. And Lori, be more considerate about our students, our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Okay, next we will go to Dr. Sharon Gunn, who is a longtime clinician at CPS, and she'll take it away. Go ahead, Dr. Gunn.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gunn. I'm a physical therapist and I work citywide, predominantly on the south and southeast side. And I know firsthand how difficult it is for our parents to handle this pandemic and this remote educational system. I see it every day. CPS decision to bring in preschoolers and students in special educational classes is frightening. What CPS is answering is not to bring in our least vulnerable, but our most vulnerable population. When taken as a group, they have the highest rate of asthma, heart disease, respiratory illness, seizures, and chronic disabilities. Most importantly, the highest rate of not being able to wear a mask or social distance for their own protection. We all heard what CPS said yesterday. It is what they did not say that raised a lot of concerns. These students will struggle to wear a mask for 3 to 7 hours. There have not been any plans released for the bus, the lunchroom, changing diapers, or how many students in a pod. Clinicians see a large majority of students from all age groups and all classes. How would this be monitored for contact tracing? And how many pods are clinicians allowed to be in? It is difficult to provide occupational and physical therapy services and maintain social distancing. Until we get a clear plan from CPS, I cannot say that opening the school for this population is a safe or good idea. I speak firsthand about occupational and physical therapy services. We have worked hard to provide an rich remote learning experience. We are modifying our therapy services for the home. Some are dropping off supplies or giving parents suggestions with using household items for therapy. The families I see are very engaged in the child therapy. Recently, Dr. Randall, an occupational therapist, used puppet therapy to teach handwriting and to calm one of our special needs students. We ask parents to be patient, continue to work with us, and we appreciate your hard work and dedication. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gunn. Our next speaker is Kirsten Roberts, who is a veteran early childhood teacher at Brentano. Kirsten.
Hi, and thank you so much for being here this morning. Yesterday the news was really hard to watch, and I'm not talking about the surprise announcement from Chicago Public Schools and talking about the fact that we lost 53 people in the state of Illinois yesterday too soon to this COVID virus. And we see the numbers going up here and all around us, and it's a tragedy. And since school started in September, I've had both students, multiple students, and a coworker that I work with directly who have had to self-quarantine because of COVID in their families. Because we were remote, we were safe, and school continued uninterrupted in those situations. And thank God those people are all safe today. They're all healthy. But what would have happened if we had been in school is that we would have all been exposed to COVID. School would have been interrupted. We would have had to have quarantined. And we can only wonder if we would have gotten sick or brought that sickness home to our families. I teach special needs preschoolers in a half-day program, meaning that they will expect me in mid-November, in the middle of flu season, and with rising COVID rates in the neighborhood I work in, to work with 30 students every day and multiple adults who support those students. I teach children who still routinely mouth objects, who self-soothe by sucking their thumbs, and who need help with toileting. That is who I teach. I love my job. I love my students, and I love the families that I'm helping to support. But I also love my family, and I love my life. And in September, we said to Chicago Public Schools, please don't make us choose between those two things. We also said, please support remote learning so we can make it a better experience for our students and families. And we said, please invest in a safe reopening and be transparent with us about how you're going to reopen schools safely, what the COVID rates are, where are there outbreaks in our school communities. Most of all, we said, please collaborate with us. We are the professionals who want nothing more than healthy, strong public education communities. And that's why we went on strike last year for smaller classes, for a nurse and a social worker in every school every day. And it's why we are going to continue to fight to keep our communities safe. The last thing I'm going to say is that I am so grateful and I am in awe of the parents and grandparents who are supporting their students right now at home through remote learning. You are the true heroes in this pandemic who are keeping our communities safe. We're going to continue to work together with you to make remote learning better and to keep remote learning going for all of our students until it's safe for our students and our school communities to return and be together again. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Our next speaker is Jamila Wilson, who is a union sister of the CTU. She works in the home child care division and is a member of SEIU HCII. Jamila.
Thank you. I first would like to say good morning, everyone, and thanks for including me in the conversation today. Child care providers are usually not included in the conversation when it comes to educating children. But again, my name is Jamila. I am a home child care provider and I'm a member of CIU. I have been open and providing care for children throughout the pandemic in the Austin community for families. I have served in the Austin community for over 15 years now. Currently, I have 6 children who are remote learning and 2 are in the pre-K program. What child care providers are expressing is that we are in fear of children returning to school with no safe plan to open. Children are returning to school and then returning back to daycares, which increases the risk of child care providers, staff, and other children in being exposed to the virus. The intermingling of the two different environments on a daily basis is a tremendous risk for everyone's health. Reading this morning, the email saying that pre-K students will be returning, which are our youngest learners who are predominantly in daycares, was just ridiculous to me. I didn't understand, and it makes me scared, it makes me frightened, and other childcare providers are expressing the same feelings. Do childcare providers matter is what I'm asking. You know, are we a part of the conversation in this situation? We have these children every day throughout the entire year, not just for a school session, but we have these children all the time. Do our decision count? Do our decision matter in making these important decisions? It doesn't seem like it. Just like when remote learning went into action, childcare providers were not included in the discussion, and we were just thrusted upon us. Yes, we are experiencing challenges with remote learning, but I'd rather be safe and receive support during this process than returning back to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. All right, next we have Crystal Williams-Hayes, who is the recording secretary of the CTU. Good morning, Crystal, your turn.
Good morning. It's really hard to follow everything that has been said this morning, and I don't know how much more I can add to this. This platform has been overwhelming to hear the stories of losses, of fears and anxieties that come out of this. And I would hope that Mayor Lightfoot and her staff at CPS are listening and honing in on this and taking it to heart, that people are really concerned about COVID and how it affects families outside of classrooms. As Jamila just mentioned, it doesn't just affect the immediate classroom, it's her household. Her being a caretaker and providing that service, it affects her household directly, and then it leaves her household and goes to another household. So and then another household, because she has multiple families in her space. So I would hope that CPS would listen to what's happening and take to heart when you have a zip code of 60639 with a 21.8 positivity rate of COVID. That's scary. And that's something that we all should be really looking at. I don't get it. I don't know why. We have school clerks we've been pushing, where an arbitrator has ruled that schools are unsafe. With all the evidence that we've shared with them, they say it's unsafe for them to be in the building. If it's just that one group that's it's unsafe for, how is it that you're going to put groups of children and staff members in the same space? We have reports of members of people with COVID in these schools. How can you put more people in these spaces and they're not even reporting it? It blows my mind. It just blows my mind. I don't understand it. I commend all of you that are here. We got to stand tall. We got to keep fighting. And I say to Mayor Lightfoot, listen to what the people are saying. Listen to what the people are saying that are on the grounds doing the work. This is not a top-down management that you're running in the city. These are people that are vested in the work that they're doing. Take it to heart. Do not put our members, families, and children back into these schools. You would have a tragedy on your hands, and the blood will be on you.
Thank you, Crystal. Okay, so now I'm going to call on Maria Moreno, the CTU's financial secretary, to do a brief summary of the things that have been said that weren't translated to Spanish already. Then I'll be calling on journalists to ask questions. Again, you can put your questions starting now in the Q&A if you want to write them. Also, you'll be able to use the hand raising function in Zoom to indicate that you'd like to speak if you want to ask your question yourself. So go ahead, Maria, you're next. Oh, you're muted, Maria.
Buenos días, soy María Moreno, secretaria de Finanzas del Sindicato de Maestros de Chicago. CPS y la alcaldesa planean forzar a los estudiantes de preescolar y con necesidades especiales, nuestros estudiantes más vulnerables, a regresar a edificios inseguros, arriesgando la vida de los estudiantes y el personal a medida que aumenta la pandemia. Las familias y los educadores necesitan un plan claro de seguridad antes de que más miembros, niños o otros trabajadores regresen a los edificios escolares. Esta semana pasada, la tasa de positividad en la ciudad llegó a un nivel más alto desde el comienzo de la pandemia. La tasa de positividad entre los latinos de Chicago durante las últimas 2 semanas es de más de 20%, afroamericanos más de 8% y 9% para jóvenes de menos de 17 años. Estas pautas de seguridad ya llegan a un nivel donde la ciudad dijo que necesitamos el aprendizaje remoto. No tiene nada de sentido que CPS está diciendo que los niños tienen que ingresar a los edificios a este tiempo. Si desde la primavera, con un número reducido de empleados en los edificios y ningún estudiante es adentro, ya vemos más de 250 casos de COVID, 30 escuelas con casos de COVID y ya 9 muertos de empleados. ¿Cómo se verá esto si ingresan más de 20,000 estudiantes de primera infancia y de educación especial y casi 2,200 empleados en edificios? Esto sería un desastre. La alcaldesa y el liderazgo de CPS están impulsando prácticas peligrosas, incluido un regreso al aprendizaje en persona sin garantías de seguridad que socava la equidad y la seguridad durante la pandemia. Los estudiantes de la primera infancia y educación especial requieren horarios adecuados de aprendizaje remotos y adaptaciones basadas en la edad para el aprendizaje remoto. En cambio, CPS está utilizando su inhumano programa de aprendizaje remoto como excusa para obligar a nuestros alumnos más jóvenes y con necesidades especiales a ingresar a los edificios que no están inseguros, con total indiferencia por el daño que esto causará en las familias y vecindarios de los estudiantes. Necesitamos colaboración, transparencia y un sentido de responsabilidad compartida por parte de CPS para hacer conjuntamente lo mejor para todos los miembros de nuestra comunidad escolar. El aprendizaje remoto no es fácil y aunque nuestros miembros han trabajado mucho para hacerlo mejor, CPS debe dejar de ignorar lo que dicen los educadores y los padres sobre cómo hacer que el aprendizaje remoto funcione de manera eficaz. También necesitamos un plan de CPS que abarca el rastreo de contactos, las pruebas y la infraestructura adecuada con nuestras escuelas. También estamos esperando que la alcaldesa comprometa a realizar más pruebas en las comunidades más afectadas y planes comunitarios de mitigación más sólidos, porque impugnar el fallo vinculante de un árbitro no nos lleva a donde debemos estar. Tenemos un largo camino por recorrer y hacerlo sin los padres, educadores y la comunidad sería un desastre. Gracias.
Okay, thank you, Maria. So, excuse me, now we're going to open it up for questions from the media. Got one question that's been typed in. And like I said, if you're in the media and you'd like to ask your question live, you can just use the hand raising function. Otherwise, you can type them in the Q&A panel. So the first question is from Diane Pathieu at Channel 7. What is CTU's next move if CPS does indeed move forward with this plan? And then she asked, can those SN and other teachers refuse? I'm not sure what those other indications are. But anyway, yeah, so does someone want to take a stab at what is CTU's next move if CPS does indeed move forward with this plan?
Thanks, Eric. You know, I resent being placed in the position of being the grown-up and the responsible party in Chicago. To the point that Goodchild made earlier, based on the criteria that the mayor, her top doctor, and her administrators at CPS introduced last summer, this isn't possible. So right now we are discussing a plan that they have already said is impossible to implement based on the criteria that they created and introduced last summer. Why is it the responsibility of the Chicago Teachers Union, our members, the families we serve, to remind them of their responsibility? We are always placed in a situation where we either have to be the grown-ups or we have to be the heavy. This is her bag. Our mayor ran for a position to care for the lives of every resident in the city of Chicago. I resent that we are always being made to be the heavy in this. The metrics are clear to everyone who can read. The impact is clear to everyone who's been living in America.
Thank you, Stacey. We also have a question from Yana Kunichov. She asks, do you have an estimate on how many CTU members would newly be working in schools under this plan? What is the union's next step in response to this announcement? And Yana also asks about the question of enrollment decline in pre-K. Do you have a response to how these figures may have played into a reopening decision?
A couple of things. I think Kristen can answer the question with regard to the enrollment figures with pre-K. Number one, this is the first pandemic we've experienced in this country in 100 years. So I want to center the reason why we are experiencing everything. Context matters. So that's number one. Number two, I think that what we have lost is this effort to provide more, not less. Look, before this pandemic, we had children who existed in low-income households. Before this pandemic, we had special education children that were not getting what they deserved in our school communities. Before this pandemic, we had early childhood education students where we had to force the district to even give them nap time. The issues of inequity in the Chicago public schools is as old as racism, right? And so saying that out loud and owning that means one thing, that they have a responsibility before, during, and after that of this pandemic. Part two of that, we estimate that there will be approximately 30,000 people in the school communities with the plan that they set forth. Kirsten.
Yes, I have been reading over the past 24 hours that there's big concerns from Chicago public schools about declining enrollment for preschool. And what I would say to that is that for the past several years, they have forced parents to use a completely overcomplicated, centralized online registration system, taking preschool registration out of the hands of schools. If you have a kindergarten student, an 8th grade student, you go to your school to register. If you have a preschool student, you have to spend hours navigating a complicated website to register. We have seen declining enrollment due to that. They had a very late rollout of that website. And this year, that website that centralized registration has been a failure for years. And we also had a situation in many schools where principals had a limited number of devices and prioritized K through 8 and did not give devices to preschool families. And so if they're concerned about declining enrollment, which we are too, that's where they would start. And if they talked to us and collaborated with us, we could have pointed them in that direction.
And let me just add this on this part. Back in the summer, we attempted to negotiate a plan with the Chicago Public Schools that would have provided volunteer support from our educators to go to the homes of our students who have a difficult time engaging, to ensure, just what Kristen said, that our students and their families had engagement from the very people that they would be engaging with on a daily basis. Chicago Public Schools told us that they did not have to negotiate with us on a volunteer effort for our members. They refused to come to an agreement to engage our students, their families, and how we make sure that they're connected to the school communities. Again, we offered a plan and they refused to negotiate that plan.
All right, thank you. I just saw Jamila would like to add something. Go ahead, Jamila.
I totally agree with both Stacey and Kristen. However, I also believe that a lot of parents were comfortable in keeping their children in home childcare and centers throughout the pandemic. They're used to that environment. It's a safer environment for their children. So a lot of parents did not go out and sign their children up for the pre-K program because they were already in a safe environment, a smaller environment.
Thank you, Jamila. Okay, at this point, I don't think I see Sarah Karp asked basically the same question as Yana about the low pre-K enrollment question from CPS. We've kind of answered that. I don't see any other questions. So I'll take one more moment here to see if there's any other questions from journalists. And then we can take some moment to do some closing remarks, I guess. So I don't see any more. So are there, Stacey, did you want to say some things at the close here? Or are there others who wanted to?
Look, I appreciate the families that we serve here in the city of Chicago. This isn't easy. This has been some of the most difficult life experiences that many of us will have over time. I mean, that's the bottom line. And the only way that we get through this is together. If Dr. Fauci is telling us that we can't have Thanksgiving, we can't have Christmas, and the way that we have had it, how then can we be given a plan, not engaged, but given a plan that does not respect the reality that we are dealing with? Our neighborhoods, the COVID infection rates within there, the positivity rates in the neighborhoods where our students live, we need a plan for that. And the plan is just not to shift them back into school communities that are ill prepared to receive them. Look, we want to be back in our school communities. I think we've made that clear. And we have a short time to create infrastructure that will keep all of us safe. And so the best thing that our mayor, that our school district can do is engage the stakeholders, those who have the most to gain and the most to lose from any type of reopening plan. Thank you, and have a great Friday.
Thank you, Stacey. We have one last question from Yana, which I can answer quickly. It's just, how will we be communicating next steps with our members and so on? I know that we are planning a teletown hall, so teachers should be, CTU members should be on the lookout for an announcement about that. And we'll be, people will of course be hearing more from us as this unfolds.
Eric,
yeah.
Look,
sure.
We don't run the Chicago Public Schools. The mayor, the city of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, runs the Chicago Public Schools. What is her plan? And how does it conform to the science and to the realities that Black families and Latinx families are dealing with in the city of Chicago?
Excellent. Okay. Thanks again for joining us this morning. Thanks to all the speakers. Thank you to journalists. Thanks for those who watched on Facebook. And like I said, you'll be hearing more from us. All the best.